Hello, Body Messiah. Today we're going to start lesson 2 of TBON, which represents Take Back Our Narrative. Today's lesson is titled Africa Throughout the Bible. In this Bible study lesson, we're going to discuss us taking back our narrative, but I'm going to prove to you and show you to reinforce the narrative that we're going to take back, how Africa, based on some of its cities, its landmarks, how the namesakes of some of those are associated with biblical scriptures. We're going to do this based on the geography and the history of Africa and also Bible scriptures I'm going to present to you to show you how these namesakes are linked to particular people or actual towns mentioned by the Bible. I want 3 things to happen in this lesson. Now, before I discuss those 3 things, I want to mention to you that this is only going to be part 1 of lesson 2. I know I'm going to have many more parts, to this lesson because I'm going to seek out people who are more indigenous to Africa currently based on their birthplace being there and what they know as far as their own history and what their ancestors have taught them, because there's much more than what I'm going to cover. It could take days to cover all of the associated biblical names that are associated with the Bible and also land spaces that are in Africa today. But hopefully I can get maybe even some people to narrate some of the parts that are going to come afterwards associated with this topic of Africa throughout the Bible. But I want us to know beyond a shadow of a doubt 3 things after this lesson. Number 1, Africa is the origin of man. The origin of man occurred in Africa. This is going to be proved, like I said, on geography and history, and also the Word of God. We're going to know beyond a shadow of a doubt. The second thing is, like I mentioned before in the why, in those lessons, the whole house of Israel, I've mentioned how that land space that is man-made, defined today as Israel, is not the actual boundaries of what Adonai promised Patriarch Abraham. And we're going to show this and continue to reinforce that based on information we're going to uncover today. That Israel, the land space of Israel, actually the boundaries cut down into the eastern side of Africa and also covers parts of Arabia, Now we have to be mature enough to take back this narrative because it's just a demonic deception. And God doesn't want us to dwell in darkness. We have to be obligated to teach people the truth. Just speak the truth, not by arguing or fussing, but we also are obligated to teach our next generation so they won't dwell further in darkness as we did. Number 3, we're going to see where many of the townships or descendants of Israel, or the townships that they were told that they were to overtake or reside in, those names that are mentioned are corresponding directly with the names of cities and towns that exist today in Africa. We're going to uncover that to show you how descendants of Israel are all throughout Africa. That's one way I know beyond a shadow of a doubt we're going to have more parts to this lesson because there have been hundreds of documents out there and information where people are uncovering all these descendants of Israel throughout Africa. The one lecturer I told you guys to research and look at his YouTube videos, named Thomas Odimba, he states it beautifully when he says the lost tribes are never lost. They're all throughout Africa. But African people, descendants of Africans, are the most ignored people on the planet. But I just praise God for such a time as this. God is beginning to open all our eyes for this great awakening. So I'm very grateful for that. But those are the 3 things we're going to know beyond a shadow of a doubt. The origins of man in Africa, the fact that the land space, portions of Israel, the boundaries are in Africa, and we're going to know beyond a shadow of a doubt, descendants of Israel and Israel roam and dwell throughout Africa and exist, those descendants, throughout Africa today. Now I'm going to pull the camera shot closer because I want you guys to look at, I'm going to have a few poster boards that I'm going to change out here as I pause the video. But I'm going to pull it closer because I want you to make notes of the scriptures in the name of these land spaces that I cover, because this is a Bible study. And I want for you to go and make a note of these scriptures, research these cities yourself that are a portion of Africa, research them on your own, because I don't want you to solely take the word of one person. You should be able to study this yourself. Commune with the Most High and draw closer to Him as you find this factual information out to be true. Go back and research on your own as a part of this Bible study, because we're going to cover a lot here today. So hold on one moment as I bring the camera shot closer. Okay, Body Messiah, one of the first areas that we're going to cover is not exactly associated with just the Torah, but it's associated with the Brit Hadashah, the New Testament scriptures. And I want to show you to touch in this area in Ethiopia, to show you right off the top how man has tried to manipulate in the past, like less than a century, of a storyline and a narrative regarding our Messiah, and how the angel of the Lord came to Joseph and Miriam, his parents, and told them to escape. But when he told them to escape, he told them, just like Adonai said, told them to go down into Egypt. Today, when we talk about this story, a lot of people don't even regard that as being an area that's in Africa. Because when you look at the man-made space and area they've defined, called Israel today, they've also named a city Nazareth. But this is not the Nazareth that Adonai told them to flee to. And so we're going to go here and look at this land space in detail and cover the scriptures where we can reinforce and know for certain that when he told Joseph and Miriam to flee and take our Messiah, that he was talking about Africa, specifically Ethiopia, when he told them to flee. So in taking back our narrative, we can stop this demonic lie off the top when people are discussing it, that we know that our Messiah was dark-skinned. He was a black man, okay? And we know this beyond a fact, but Ethiopia further proves that, this land space that he was in. There is a city in Ethiopia called, today they name it mostly Adama. It's also known as Adama Nazareth, Ethiopia. Its original name was Nazareth. Okay, this is the Nazareth that the Bible is speaking of when our Most High God sent an angel and told them to flee. And the reason why we know this is we can go and you can research on your own of how Nazareth is mentioned in John chapter 1, verse 46, Luke 1, chapter 26, Matthew 2, chapter 2, verse 23, Mark chapter 1, verse 24. But to prove that this Nazareth we're talking about is in Africa, specifically go to Matthew chapter 2, verses 13 through 15. This proves that Nazareth is in Africa, not in that man-made region that they're calling Israel today. Because when you look at verse 13, it says the angel of Adonai said to them, "Get up, take the child and his mother, and flee to Egypt." And it continues to say, he got up, speaking of Joseph, and went to Egypt. Adonai had prophesied, this was prophesied through one of the prophets, that Adonai would call his son out of Egypt. So one of the prophets, it mentions that in verse 15, Adonai through the prophet saying, "Out of Egypt I call my son." So as I mentioned to you guys before in some of the previous lessons of the why, Egypt, Africa was referred to as the land of Cush. It was referred to as Egypt. It was referred to as Ethiopia. That's what Africa was referred to. They did not have the name of the continent Africa defined when in Bible scriptures they were referring to Africa. It was either Egypt, Ethiopia, or the land of Cush. So the scripture says he called his son out of Egypt. This is the Nazareth that the Bible is talking about when he told our Messiah, told his parents to flee from the oppression that Herod was going to carry out to kill the firstborn, to kill the children that were under 2, to try and destroy the Messiah. Now you can go to the Negro Land map, and the reason why I'm mentioning this, lesson 5 of the Why, the whole house of Israel, it contains the Negro Land map. And here I just want to reinforce the fact that the beginnings and the origins of man is in the eastern portion of Africa. And historians knew this. They knew this centuries ahead of time, even before they began to discuss so-called the theory of evolution. The theory of evolution, they were just trying to justify and try to basically imply that they knew that the origins of man was in Africa, but they tried to degrade the African man, then saying that they evolved from monkeys. This is not true. According to Bible scriptures, if you go back and look at lesson 5 of the Why, the whole house of Israel, I have a document in there, historical document named the Negro Land Map, and it's from the 1700s. And in that Negro Land map, you will see, when you look at the eastern coast of Africa, and I discuss it in that video, where there's land spaces that the indigenous people had named in Africa, and one of those land spaces is called Deserts of Seth. If you look in Genesis chapter 5, verses 3 through 6, you will see who Seth is. Seth is the son of Adam and Eve. After Cain killed Abel, then they had a son named Seth. You will go and see that in Genesis. When you go further on in that Negro Land map and you look along the eastern coast of Africa, there's a whole region that the indigenous people call the country of Adam. Adam, Adam and Eve. Look in Genesis chapter 3, verse 20, and you'll know that's the origins of man. Scientists have proven and shown they found the oldest human bones and remains in the eastern side of Africa. But this is something that they've already known for centuries. And they've known this because the people indigenous to the land had called these name spaces, these landmarks or areas of regions, the name of people who are from the Bible. Now let me put up the next poster. Now this next country we're covering in Africa is called Chad. In Chad, there is a town called Tera, T-E-R-A. Tera is similar to the name T-E-R-A-H. Terah in the Bible is the father of patriarch Abraham. And you can see that in Genesis chapter 12, verses 24 through 26. So that's an affiliation of our patriarch, Father Abraham, his father, Terah. Now in Sudan and in South Sudan, you have names that are kind of similar to one name in the Bible, Jabal or Juba. Jabal in Sudan, Jabal is a city there. And there is a Juba, Juba in South Sudan. These names are linked to Jubal, Jubal, who is the son of Lamech. Lamech is mentioned in Jubal in Genesis chapter 4, verse 21. Now, if we go on to look at a few other cities in South Sudan, we see Malakah, and this name means messenger of God. Malek means angel of God or king, master. Now we can go over to the country of Benin. Benin has a city called Dan. Now, I immediately thought of the tribe of Dan, one of the descendants of Israel. But do you realize if you go to Genesis chapter 14, verse 4, before the tribe of Dan ever existed, there is a land of Dan that is mentioned. And it's mentioned when we talk about how patriarch Abraham, when he fought the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah, of those different areas, those 5 kings that he defeated in order to get his nephew Lot back. In Genesis chapter 14, verse 14, it says that he pursued them all the way unto the town or the city of Dan. So Dan is mentioned before there is even a tribe called Dan. But associated with the descendants of Israel in the same region, ironically, or Hebrew descendants, you see a city called Sanson. Sanson is similar to Samson, who is descendant of the tribe of Dan. As you know, when you go look in Judges chapter 13, verse 2, and Judges chapter 13, verse 24. Now, one of the Hebrew descendants who are associated with Esau, the intermarrying of some descendants of Esau to Amalek, is an uncle of Amalek. Now, they're not specifically descendants of Esau, but the descendants of Esau did marry into some of the sons of Seir. And there is a city called Lahotan. It's similar to Lotan. Lotan was Amalek's uncle. And Timnah, who is Amalek's mom, that's Timnah's brother. Lotan is the son of Seir, Seir. And he is the chief of the Horites. And you can find him in Genesis chapter 36, verse 29. So it's just amazing that, there was fighting between the descendants of Esau and Israel, and even the Horites, the sons of Seir. And I believe when a lot of them fled, they fled deeper into Africa. And to me, this is just further proof of that scenario happening. Now let's cover our next land spaces. Here we have the country of Ghana. And in Ghana, we're going to begin to cover Hebrew descendants and specifically descendants of Israel. In Ghana, there is a town called Tema, Tema. And you'll know based on the Bible, the Torah, and the Tanakh, that Tema is a descendant of Ishmael. That's found in Genesis chapter 25, verse 15, and 1 Chronicles chapter 1, verse 30. Then you have Jachai. Jachai is one of the sons of Simeon. You'll find that in Genesis chapter 46, verse 10. You have Ehi. It's a town in Ghana called Ehi. Ehi is one of the sons of Benjamin. And you'll see that in Genesis chapter 46, verse 21. Oh, and the infamous Ashan, the Ashanti people, Ashan. Ashan is a village in Ghana. And this is a town where the descendants of Simeon settled. If you look in Joshua chapter 19, verse 7, it specifically says that Ashan is a town where the descendants of Simeon settled. But you must also remember that Simeon settled with Judah, the descendants of Judah. And that can be found in Joshua chapter 19, verse 9. So the Ashanti people are descendants of Israel. Here we have next is the country of Nigeria. And in Nigeria, there is a town called Jera. The Jera people are descendants of the tribe of Benjamin. Jera, Gera, is a son of Benjamin. That's mentioned in Genesis chapter 46, verse 21. Next, we have the Dangashuni, or Shunai. I hope I'm pronouncing it right, but like I said, please forgive me. I'm doing my best. The Shuni, Shuni, is one of the sons of Gad. And this son of Gad is mentioned in Genesis chapter 46, verse 16, and Numbers chapter 26, verse 15. Now let's move on to the Congo. Now in the Congo, there is the Sonyi people. The Sonyi people. The Sonyi people are also known as the Zela people. Zela. Zela, Zela, is a town that was assigned to the descendants of Benjamin. And this is mentioned in Joshua chapter 18, verse 28. So we have all these descendants of Ishmael, descendants of Benjamin, descendants of Simeon, descendants of Judah who are intertwined with Simeon, with the Shanti people. We also have, this just going throughout this region of Ghana, Nigeria, and the Congo. Now let's go to our next one. Okay, next we have Tanzania. Now, this region is one reason why I know we're going to cover more parts to this lesson is because I have some friends, Minister Koya and his wife Nema, who basically are indigenous to Tanzania. And they know much more history about Tanzania. But they have told me things about it. And I'm thinking, as they're telling me stuff about the history, that, oh my goodness, you guys are descendants. There's so much more to cover, but I'm just going to cover 3 things that I know for sure that I found out. Merari. Merari is a hill in Tanzania. And Merari is also a son of Levi. And this is mentioned in Genesis chapter 46, verse 11. Moshi. Moshi is a city in Tanzania or a mountain. I apologize, those who are from Tanzania. If I'm wrong, just correct me, add a comment and correct me. But Moshe is the way that many Hebrews pronounce Moses' name. When you have Merari, this is the son of Levi, who are also associated with Moshe. These namesakes is to me amazing that they're here. Because when you even go over here to Mushi is a catfish that's found in Tanzania. But Mushi is also a son of Merari. This Mushi is the grandson of Levi. And this is mentioned in Exodus chapter 6, verse 19. You're going to find different things or items or things that are stated in Swahili that have names that are exactly like biblical names or descendants of Israel throughout the Bible. And so when I talk with them more, I'll bring more information regarding that region called Tanzania. Now here, South Africa. For many decades, there have been so-called colonizers who have discovered, descendants of Israel throughout here. But I'm going to focus on these different areas, these first 2 here. Horma is a city in South Africa, but it's also the city where descendants of Simeon and Judah defeated some Canaanite people. And this is mentioned in Judges chapter 1, verse 17. Jahalil. Jahalil is an island on the eastern coast of South Africa. Jahalil is a son of Zebulun. And he's mentioned in Genesis chapter 46, verse 41. Now, the Nguni people, I hope I'm pronouncing it right. These are people of Bantu heritage that are located in South Africa. And the Bantus include tribal groups like the Zulu, Khoisan. Some of these people from this nation or different tribes. But Guni, this is without the N. Guni is one of the sons of Naphtali. And he's mentioned in Genesis chapter 46, verse 24. So here you see where you have Levitical descendants of Levi in the area of Tanzania. You have descendants of Simeon and Judah in South Africa, Zebulun in South Africa, and Naphtali in the region of South Africa. So you've got all these descendants throughout here. There was a documentary that talked about the Limba people. And the Limba people are around this area, with South Africa and stuff. And they have found them based on DNA are a part of the Kohanim or the Levitical priesthood. That's what their DNA is directly linked to. And they are more of the Levitical priesthood than the people who call themselves Jewish in that land space that they're calling Israel today. I mean, it caused such a big conflict. But hey, these people have existed throughout biblical times and their descendants are still there. And that will never change. But what has to change is that we have to change the narrative and begin to speak truth about these things. Okay, let's cover one more. Okay, I had to return back so that we can look at Sudan again. Now remember, Sudan, if you go back and look at lesson 3 of the why, and I discussed this about Sudan, the history of Sudan's name. It came from Soyuda. Soyuda means land of Judah. And you can look at lesson 3 of the why and see me mention this and discuss in detail. And so we already know that just based on Sudan, the country of Sudan, that Israel, the descendants of Judah, and Israel as the land space goes through Sudan. Okay, but we're going to go back and I'm going to mention another city in Sudan, Nimuel. Nimuel. Nimuel is a son. It's spelled differently here. The city is spelled Nimule, but here in the Bible it's spelled Nemuel. And Nimuel is the son of Simeon. And when you look at the King James Version of the Bible, there are 2 places where you will find Nimuel. Nimuel is the son of Simeon, and he's also a son of Eliab. Eliab was one of those who rebelled against Moshe, when the rebellion of Korah. So look in the King James Version at Numbers chapter 26, verse 12. You'll see that he's mentioned as the son of Simeon. And then look at 1 Chronicles chapter 4, verse 24. And you'll see that he's mentioned as a son of Eliab. Now, when we go and look at South Sudan, in South Sudan, this, of course, is going to be associated with a descendant of Israel, Nahum. There is a city called Kosh. And Nahum, when you look in the Bible scripture at Nahum chapter 1, verse 1, it says, El Koshite, he is said to be the prophet Nahum. That's his birthplace. So his birthplace is in this region. Now we're going to go back to Benin. And I'm going to cover this Quida. Kuda. I was thinking it was Cuda. But when you look at the Negro land map that I mentioned in lesson 5 of the why, the whole house of Israel, you'll see that this was pronounced Judah, Juda, Judah, like the tribe of Judah. This is where a lot of the African slaves were pulled from. Ghana, Benin, all these different areas here. And so this Quida is pronounced Judah, not Wikida, I was thinking it was Quida, but it's Judah. That's the pronunciation. The country of Malai, Mali. That namesake is similar to 2 namesakes associated with the tribe of Levi. And there is a Mahali, Mahli. There's an H in there. And this is a son of Mushai. That's mentioned in 1 Chronicles chapter 6, verse 47 through 49. And this Mahali is spelled Mahali, who is the son of Merari, as mentioned in Exodus chapter 6, verse 19 through 21. Both are descendants of the tribe of Levi. Body of Messiah, this is the information that I've uncovered. Like I said, this is just the surface of all these different areas and landmarks throughout Africa that are associated with biblical scriptures. Now, it's not going to be easy to take back our narrative because Satan's deception has been for so long, but we have to start somewhere. We have to do it for the sake of the next generation. Just simply speak the truth. We have to be adamant about taking back our narrative. Those who are descendants of Israel or not, or Hebrew or not, we have to always focus on the truth of Adonai's word. Do your best not to miss out on this great awakening. Proceed in truth and be a part of it. Be a part of this great awakening because God is calling, like I said, his descendants and his people who truly trust in him above man back under his shield of protection. And so by teaching this next generation, we will never, ever forget. We have to be very adamant about speaking this truth. And as we teach our next generation, make sure you make certain to undergird, especially not just the young women, but especially the young men, especially those brown and black descendants of Israel, the young men. They were called to be the leaders when it came to the worship of the Most High. They were the ones who God chose to breathe life into first when we deal with who Adam is. So the whole point is God is returning everyone, especially them, back to his heart and back under his shield of protection. That the next generation of those young men will be called on to be the leaders, who will be leaders during this great awakening, who will never waver away from being under God's protection and trusting in him and his whole word. They will be the leaders of our families, the next generation of our families, to be able to teach that next generation. God has called us to do this, body of Messiah, and we have to hold to it. Now, like I said, the next parts of lesson 2 will come further down the line, but I am going to proceed with Take Back Our Narrative in lesson 3. Lesson 3 is going to be associated with revealing how creation is a fact based on math and science. It's more of a fact than anything. It's no theory like the theory of evolution, but we're going to prove that in the next lesson, how creation is a fact based on math and science. And we have to take back that narrative because there's such a demonic deception in this quote theory of evolution. We're going to show you how God has been using simple things to confound the wise. Well, body Messiah, this is the end of lesson 2. And I really hope and pray that you're able to join me for lesson 3 and the next parts to these lessons in the future. But until then, I hope and pray that Adonai will cover you and shower you with his shalom peace. Goodbye.